So, welcome to this week's episode of the Rock and Roll Ghost podcast. This week I have Phillip Foss, chef and owner of Michelin-starred Ideas, and its temporary, perhaps not temporary, spin-off Boxcar BBQ, which he's started in the midst of the pandemic. How you doing today, Phillip?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. So, all right. Some people may know, some people may not know. Tell us as long or shortly as you can about where Ideas was as the pandemic started and the last year transitioning to Boxcar BBQ.
To try to sum that, you might as well ask the $100,000 question. I'm not going to be shy about going in there, are you, Brett? Just go straight for the gold. It's been a year unlike any other, to be sure. I think the thing that, obviously the financial woes, is everybody's going through that, in this business anyway. But I think the biggest thing has probably been the amount of times I feel like I've had to slip in and out of character. It's like, the things that are in my control, the things that I try to focus on what I actually have control over, which obviously these days doesn't feel like a heck of a lot. But, even the small things, everything's just like, it's like we're in earthquake mode, I feel like, like after the asteroid hit and kind of killed off all the dinosaurs, like the real struggle actually began after the actual asteroid hit. Those that weren't out right away were in for a real kind of wild ride. And I feel like that's kind of what it's been like ever since our first shutdown. You just, every time you turn, you kind of get flipped and switched around the other direction. And so, you got me actually right in the midst of this happening once again, so.
Right.
And for the record, I think it's important to state that Boxcar BBQ, my intention is to keep it around to stay. I spent so much time, building it up. I've got, ribs in the oven. Would you like to see the ribs in the smoker?
Mm-hmm. Nice. Excellent.
It's been a labor of love, and I'm not really willing to let go of it or interested in letting go of it. So now, I'm going to get stuck. Here I am in this awkward place of having to kind of now relaunch Ideas at the same time. I wasn't expecting this to happen until like the warmer weather of the spring came around.
Right. Right.
Juxtaposition. It's been a constant juxtaposition would be my best way of describing it.
Yeah. So now you're intending on opening Ideas, resuming service then.
Yep. We just announced it today, and this was probably the most awkward juxtaposition since the whole thing began, about what to do. Are we going to open or not open? But the reality is that the financial constraints are just so great that, my heart tells me that I should wait, and maybe I'd like to wait. But, we've been losing so much money so fast, and there's such little actually guaranteed about the future that, like, I feel like the bigger sin to live with is to not open. And, we're going to take every precaution. We're a small little place, and I'm not really worried about our health even, we are very worried about our health, actually, but it's just the fact that I feel like we're comfortable and we're safe. And, I feel like we've got a kind of a dining room and a institution here at Ideas that is, non-conforming, and we're not your average restaurant, and the average, so, the laws are trying to be made for the population at large, not people on the fringes. And I feel like we're certainly an establishment that's on the fringe.
Yeah. Now, so how many diners can you normally accommodate, or how many tables, I guess, can you normally
In the good old days, we were able to accommodate 28 guests, including 2 that we would put at our kitchen table. Kitchen table's obviously now gone, and the maximum that we're doing is 12.
Okay. Do you think that doing your type of food at LI Ideas to 12 guests, now is that at one time?
12 guests? Is at one time. Everybody sits down at one time. And so, yeah, and everybody finishes up at the same time.
Yeah. Do you think that, I'm having a hard time figuring.
Is it conducive to post-COVID?
No, not that so much. Just I'm able to, you're a very specific type of restaurant. You're
right.
Tasting menu. It's not a la carte. You're not going to be moving people in and out with any kind of, quickness necessarily. You're going to be doing one seating a night or 2?
Just 1.
Okay.
That's another thing that's changed. We used to be able to do 2. So I just want you to just start to, while you're talking about all these, very important political and, societal concerns, I just want you to just do the math while we're at it too.
Well, that's what I'm getting at.
Exactly.
I'm getting at how you say that you want to get back into it because of, financial reasons, but if you're doing far less covers and 1 less service a night, how does that work? How are you going to staff differently? And then also juxtaposing that with still doing the barbecue in the same spot.
Yeah, Brett, that's a really great question. And the best thing I can answer to that is that I'm probably going to be putting on my cape and, really kind of testing the limits and the parameters of what it is I'm actually able to achieve, but we pretty much before the pandemic started, we had myself and 2 chefs and a dishwasher and a front of the house guy who's been with me for, since day 1 here at Ellen, even before that. We wound up, both of my culinary team actually left on their own volition. One right when the pandemic began to be with his family. The other chef left right after we were allowed to reopen the first time. So I've pretty much been the only chef here. And that's been a big change about who we were, because the way that we used to run as a restaurant was like everybody had their own kind of platform here. And every chef came and with their own culinary ideas and presented it to the guests. So the only thing that's really happened, so on that level, the biggest difference is now it's only my own story. So, on that front, I guess I'm kind of a little bit re-energized, if you would, to just for the first time ever since we've opened, I've got my own podium, and I'm not going to be sharing it with anybody. So again, I think, where am I going with that? On the financial level, we're not going to make what we were making before. But, what we have done is been able to look at a lot of different areas in which we've, been able to actually save money. And, and now LA, coming back a little bit is going to make a big difference, the idea of just sitting and doing nothing, to me is what do they say? It's, idleness is a devil's playground, right? I'm the kind of person, I prefer to just be going. We'll worry about making money afterwards, but sitting around again and not trying is definitely not the answer.
Right. So when you do open up again, it's going to be you doing all the cooking.
Yeah.
And serving, I would imagine.
No, I have a front of house guy who does.
So he's
serving.
Coming back.
He's never left. I carried him along the whole time, and it was that in itself has been a real challenge. But he's like family. He's been here long enough, and you just kind of choose who you want to. We're going to go down together. If the ship's going down, you're in it with us. We'll carry you as long as we can. But You know, even he and I, like, I had to let go of the dishwasher the last time we got shut down, you know, like, and that was the first time I've ever had to lay anybody off on account of, you know, financial woes. And I mean, it was an awful time. You know, especially the second shutdown was just like a new, you know, you don't, and this has kind of been a little bit of the lesson of the pandemic. Like, you don't know, this might be as good as it's going to get. You know, like, and I remember saying that to myself kind of at the beginning of the pandemic, you know, like, you know, like, this is weird and awkward, but like, this is going to be a long road in front of us, you know, and it's going to just take incredible resolve and just an unrelentless ability to pick yourself back up and keep going. Quite frankly, you know, and redefine, to constantly, you know, change. You know, everyone's like, oh, it's going to go back to normal. You know what? The old normal wasn't really normal. It was just what we knew. So that's what it was. You know, no, like the roaring 20s, like, I love this idea that the roaring 20s are going to come back. You know, a reminder that led to the Depression of 1929. And, you know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that analogy is the hopeful part of people's thoughts, you know, and I get that, because people need some form of hope. I don't know what I honestly can't. I know that the pandemic, even at its state now, and who knows, there may come a point where we have to, you know, the restaurants have to close down again. We don't know that, you know.
I'm counting on that, and this is kind of, it's a great point, Brett. Again, I'm kind of counting on that to happen, you know, like, and this is what the pandemic has done in a way, and I think that the long-lasting impact of it for myself is going to be, I just never am, like, this idea of feeling safe or comfortable, you know, as a restaurant owner, never really was there. But now, at least now we know it's not an illusion. It's more of a question of how are you going to change, you know. I mean, and I can't. It just scares me, you know, for so many places in, like, the middle of the center of town, you know, with these great enormous rents, you know, and these incredible overheads, and so many livelihoods attached to it. You know, I mean, that's the part that, to me, it's not even my own personal, like, struggle. Obviously it is too, but it's like, you know, like, the amount of people I know that my business sustained, from laundry, dry cleaners, to, you know, produce suppliers, meat suppliers, to drivers, you know, like, I mean, it's a lot of people who we actually helped sustain. And, you know, I think we just have to accept that it's sad. There have been, and there are a lot of casualties, literally and metaphorically. And, you know, like, we have to go on and figure this thing out. Like, I mean, you know, somewhere along the line, I burden is, you know, the burden of life is left for the living, you know, like, it's never, this whole thing about waking up every day and not thinking you're going to be faced with some really big challenges, I think is naive. And, you know, I think right now the people who, if you're not looking at that, you know, it's going to be hard to pay. You know, there's a price to pay, I guess, you know, all the way, always.
Well, it's an interesting thing you brought up. One that I mean, I'm sure I considered it, but I didn't actually, like, sit there and think about it. And you just brought it up and made me think about the line of people behind you that you and everybody else would normally be paying, you know, money to for their services, whether it's the towel service, or you know, your produce. That the less that gets bought means more that gets hopefully, you know, if they have anything else they left over that needs to go, they go to a food bank, you know. But then that trickles back down to growers, you know, and it's like a whole thing. People don't, I don't think, consider that when one thing stops in an industry like you guys's, a lot of other things get truly affected, and that's where the economy really gets hit. I'm not much of a financial guy. I'm not much of a, you know, science or math guy, really. But, you know, it's not hard to consider, if one area stops or slows down remarkably, what other things get affected by it. You know, cutlery, use of natural resources, electricity, gas.
Right.
All that goes down. You know that, and I'm not going to feel sorry for the gas company necessarily, but then if they're off their marks, then they start laying people off. You know, it's like this weird thing that people don't realize is that one thing kind of sends shudders through everything.
Especially with this business, you know, it just, and the travel business and so many industries, you know, even sports. And, you know, you think about the people who are working the concession stands, you know, the amount of revenue it brings into hotels. And like, I mean, and that is the big picture of this. It's not just the arts and restaurants. It's and sports. It's all of the things attached to it. You know, it's and that's really where the wheels of the economy have kind of fallen off the rails. Yeah. And you know, it's just going to take time, and you know, I don't even know what it's going to take. You know, but
well, I think people have to be aware that even when we get back to a place where anybody can walk into a restaurant or anybody, you know, we can go back to sports, there's still a deficit of a year, you know, or year plus, whenever that happens, you know, maybe 2 years of a deficit of revenue and of income and, you know, of everything. And the government isn't exactly helping like other countries have, so there's people are gonna have to be prepared that, you may not be able to live high on the hog for, again, for a while, unless you happen to be one of those lucky, people that get paid a ton of money to do what you do, but even then, those people, if you think about it, overextend themselves by buying expensive apartment, condo, house, etc., expensive car payments, then they think they can sit there and, make do everything at a certain level, and then everything starts affecting them, or they get, put out of work. And then, it's like so much massive things that people don't consider, I think. And
I think it's healthy because quite honestly, I feel like if you're going to try to digest everything that's happening right now, I mean, like you're just going to make your own living worse, because there's like you say, there's just no real pretty way to spend things. And even if you do want to spend it, even if you're financially safe or whatever, you're hurting for other people, and and for those of us who are hurt financially, I don't give a fuck about my retirement at this point, I just want to make it to next summer as a business. It isn't, and that's just the hard truth. It's like there's only so, and I'm a small guy. And again, I'm going to say this again, and this is what I say to everybody is whatever it is that you're grateful for, stick your flag into that and just build your life around that at this point, and understand that your whole life is not going to be what it used to be. As far as, restaurant people in general, and again, making it, I think, to retirement, I don't think that's going to be happening so much anymore. But what I'm grateful for mostly is I feel like I'm lucky because I'm one guy. I can, all it takes for me to pivot is to just change my thought process about how I want to approach something. For Boca Group, or for the big places, Sodakoff's group and stuff, or even Alinea, it's now there's so many different things to choose, so many different, my heart goes out to so many other people in this business. Even if we go under, I still feel like I'll be able to find something somewhere, somehow. Right. But again, I just want to keep fighting, and I don't, I'll let my retirement take care of itself. If I don't get there, you know what? Retirement is really this delusion, that we just felt like we're all entitled to. It's just not. I don't know, the America of the 50s and 60s and the American dream. That only worked if you were white and male. and heterosexual. Nowadays, at least there's a little more fairness and opportunity, but, I don't have any delusions. I'm not I'm probably going to be doing this until my physical body won't allow for it anymore, or I smoke all my brains out with weed. One of the two. I don't think I'm going to do that, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, and you're right. You're right on that. You can move to do something else. You could be a chef somewhere else. You could do consulting work. You could, whatever. I mean, you could do that stuff.
I would hate it.
Well, I know you don't want to. There's a reason you're in business for yourself. There's a reason why back when we first met and talked, back with Meaty Balls, I know that you hated being the cog in the wheel of some bigger place that you had limited control over. You're not that guy, I mean, I get that.
I learned that lesson. I learned that lesson the hard way, and but it was the only way I could. And again, it's been such a really fun ride, in this business. And I feel like L Ideas is what I'm supposed to be doing. I love doing barbecue now too. And I really believe I have faith, that life is still, it may not look the way I want it to, but it's still not that bad, and it's still good. And, I've got lots of things to be grateful for, beginning with my family.
Well, that's
and ending, and then L Ideas is, yes. Is that a big part of it? Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's kids, when we talk about what this is like for, what it's like to lose a year, we're old, we've been at it. My daughters are 13 and almost 12, and like losing a year of that and what they go through, it's amazing, how kids are resilient and, in a way able to just figure it out. But it's amazing. It's hard to think of what the next generation is going to look like right now, but it's this COVID is just completely thrown it in the air.
Two things on that. One, I remember as a kid how I had at least these two different thoughts during summer vacation or something like that. How you looked at it and you had all those months off, and it always went by too fast.
Right.
But everything seemed longer than it actually was. Nowadays, months go by for me, and it's like, what the hell happened to a month? It's like, I don't know. I mean, they fly by now. And maybe it's because especially now, it's like, I don't do much of anything at all. Wasn't exactly a big, social guy to begin with, but this has really limited my scope completely. And I can't imagine what people that are social go through. But with kids, there is a certain, and maybe it's my generation that just gets irritated, the younger generation. Maybe I've officially turned into a get off my lawn guy. But I think this year might teach a certain sense of appreciation for the little things, instead of always wanting to grasp the things like, the popular singers or rappers or whatever are talking about the money moment, getting fame, getting cash, getting whatever, going out to the club. And, and I again, I know I sound old, but that has been the prevalent theme of the last 20 years is get yours, and right. Maybe this is the thing that tells people appreciate yours.
You would hope, and I think it's a case by case thing. If you can see yourself as one of those people, then consider yourself winning. It's the people who can't that I worry about. I think the most. Yeah. But I think you just gotta. I don't know. I find whatever, there's so many different stories. I think everybody's going through this in just a completely different way. And I think there are days where I feel like I've got this strength, and then there are days where I just feel like throwing in the towel and just calling it a day. Yeah. I will tell you, every time we've either gone open or gone closed and then open, it's all this weight of the world is thrown on me. And it's pretty heavy. It's pretty heavy for sure. And,
Sorry, if you see me turning around, it's
no, it's okay.
Since before the pandemic, I've moved in with family, and I'm watching. I have a dog, and they have a dog, and their dog is crazy. And I have to keep an eye on him when he starts pacing around because he's old and he's confused. He's adorable, but he's a pain in the ass. And I just want to make sure he's not running through his own shit or something.
Gotcha.
If you see me turn my head, it's because he's distracting me. In case for reference sake, his name is Arnold Palmer.
Love it.
Not the golfer. He hates that son of a bitch. He stole his name and his tea. A whole backstory for Arnold Palmer. Anyways, well, one of the things we and you were talking about on our initial phone call before we, a few weeks ago, before your article in Eater came up about delivery services, which if anybody wants to see that going on, chicagoeater.com, or do a search for Eater Chicago, Phillip Foss. He's done a great, and we'll link to it for when the podcast goes up. And of course, L-Ideas and Boxcar and everything. But you did an article basically assessing delivery services and the fees that they take and everything. And that was one of the things we were talking about, before it got published. What has your response been since that came out?
I was contacted by a bunch of people kind of straight away with ideas about where to move away, like ways to move in a different direction. I was contacted by a driver from California who was really angry at the pitch, feeling that I was saying that, I don't know exactly what he was saying, but a lot of a lot of big reactions, which I think is what you go, when you get to writing, that's what you go for. It's like, you just want the reaction, I think, in a lot of ways. And I think you're going to realize that some people are going to be in favor of what you have to say, and some people are going to take issue with it. But you never really do quite prepare for the people who take issue with what you have to say, especially, a topic like this.
Right.
I think there's a lot of people really are starting to become aware of the problem, but I didn't feel like anybody from the industry had really kind of spoken up and, kind of did some math and numbers to show how this is, that it's not, it's heavily skewed against restaurants, the partnerships.
Yeah. Well, I know, okay, so in addition to having my day job and doing this, which isn't paying, I don't get paid for this. I also I've been a rideshare driver for years for two different companies. I'm not going to say any names, but there's aren't many rideshare companies, so I guess it on your own. When the pandemic hit for me, I had an issue where my my vehicle registration was coming up to be due, and then they closed all the Secretary of State's, the driving centers, so I couldn't get my registration, done in time. Well, there's Illinois said, well, it's fine, you can, once they open back up again, you're not going to get a ticket or anything, right? But the service, the ride sharing services, needed me to have that updated in order to drive for them. So I couldn't drive for them from the end of March until when I finally got around to them opening again in June. So in the meantime, I started driving for the delivery services just to make some sort of extra money. But I don't know what driver was mad at you and what exactly the reasoning was, but you really don't make much money doing that stuff. You make more ride sharing, you could, and that's questionable too, I suppose. But the delivery services, you can make next to nothing doing those, quite honestly.
Well, I think he was mad at me because he realized I was saying don't use the apps, but he makes a decent living out of using the apps. Right. He makes a decent living.
And I get that. Yeah,
I'm all for that. I think the delivery, I wasn't at all stating, as a matter of fact, I made it a point, I felt, to state that, delivery drive, I'm happy they're doing it, but right. this was really directed at the app companies themselves, and
to figure out a better way to fix things.
It was just to say that, okay, the driver made like significantly more off of the food that I sold than I did, you know, and again, like, you know what, I mean, it just kind of makes me feel like, sincerely, this, if there's one way I could sum up how this whole year has made me feel, it's kind of reaffirmed my belief that, like, the restaurant workers, especially kitchen crews, are just low people on the totem pole in regards to society. You know, like, it's just, the cards have been so stacked against us, and like when you see like DoorDash and Uber Eats, and I'm sure Grubhub too, with ads in the Super Bowl, while we're like all dying, basically starving right now. Something's wrong with this equation, and Wall Street doesn't really, for some reason, isn't picking up on it. I get it. You know, these apps are wonderful. They're wonderful services, and you know, like, I just felt that I needed to lay the map down. I went through the process of searching for it and to consider it for Boxcar BBQ, as we just launched it at the end of the last time we were shut down. I went through the process of considering using it for Boxcar, and it just I couldn't, as much as I wanted to, because like, when you cook food and you own a restaurant, you know, like, the reason you do that is to sell your product, right? So it's like, and you know, if the people at home are choosing from their app and saying, look, this is how I'm going to do it, then as a restaurant owner, it's on us to listen to them and to put our services up there. But at what cost exactly? You know, and it just didn't pay. And I feel a lot of my colleagues continue to have their, you know, it's cash, it brings in money, it helps justify, you know, keeping a team employed. But I'd really like to see, you know, a handful of restaurants that are making, really, at the end of the day, profiting off of their partnerships with these apps, even at the pandemic rate of 15%, which was instilled like by this city, you know, as a way of stemming losses for restaurants. But you know, once the pandemic's over, that's going back up to 30%, and it just doesn't add up. It just like again, in this case, I just would rather go down on my own terms than to just feed this beast that needs to be slowed down.
Well, and something I think we talked about in our phone call was that what people don't realize is that most food costs get eaten up, even if you're, you know, obviously you're marking up generally to some degree what, you know, say like a rack of ribs, you know, you're generally, you know, they're going to cost more than the rack of ribs because you're putting in labor and, you know, sauce or, you know, dry ingredients, what have you, you know, basting, all that stuff, the gas to power, you know, the cooking and blah, blah, blah. But you're really still not making much generally off of the food itself. Where things really hit for restaurants is the markup of liquor. And without people coming in and drinking and all that, your substantial profits, which generally come from alcohol, are gone. And that's another thing people don't realize about like the apps. You're not going to be able to get, you know, a couple of, you know, highballs or whatever the hell's your drink delivered to you. You have to purchase your own alcohol, and that's cuts down the restaurant's revenue more, because then they're just making food and they're not making much more on over the cost of the food themselves.
Yeah, I think, like, here's what I feel. I don't feel like restaurants have ever been making money off of delivery apps. I'd really be surprised if any restaurant was actually profiting off of them. But before the pandemic, it was kind of masked over because, you know, like with you know, it made a difference in the daily sales numbers. It made a difference, you know, but you had like the alcohol and you know, the restaurant was busy. So like it wasn't clear, you know, like I just feel like there was just a lot of smoke around it. But
Right.
You know, as this last, over this last year that, you know, again, like one of the bright spots is like the smoke's cleared up. You see what's really in your business, you know. I wound up getting hit with, you know, we keep liquid nitrogen on hand for our famous French fry and frosty course. And like there was a, you know, after, you know, the pandemic happened, I was like, okay, we don't need any. And apparently there was like an error for like 3 dewars, huge dewars that were like $3,000 each that like they never had accounted for at their place. And I didn't have them here and they just disappeared. And, you know, we finally settled. I had to get lawyers involved and, you know, we settled at about half the cost of it. But, you know, it's like.
You're settling for half of something you didn't get.
Well, exactly.
And then you're paying a lawyer.
We did not lose them. These things are like
right.
7-foot tape.
No, I know. I'm saying though you're paying for something that you don't have, didn't
right?
Get.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like
during the pandemic when we've got no business, you know.
Right, but, and then you have to pay a lawyer.
You know, these are the little things of owning a business that nobody thinks about. It's really hard to explain to other people, but it's like it's all the little stories actually that drive me the most crazy, not the ones that everybody hears about. You know, like I think I shared yesterday on Instagram, like we got a ticket after the restaurant got closed down at the end of October. We had a health inspection like a week later, and we got a ticket for a malfunctioning dishwasher, but we can't have guests in to make dishes dirty.
Right.
You know, it's like these.
Yeah, I saw it, and you were able to win
breaking. It's like it's all the little shit. It's all the little shit that nobody thinks about in owning a business that is what one is gonna. You know, somebody fell and slipped in, and we got like a lawsuit on our hands during the pandemic. You know, it's like it's seriously like. I think I'm just airing it all out right now because about everything. It's been one thing after another, just one thing after another.
Yeah, but the positive, you were talking about getting the ticket for the dishwasher. You forgot to mention the positive of it. Tell everybody what happened.
I fought it, and I actually won. Like the judge was really like understanding and compassionate. It blew me away. They offered me a plea deal like before court, and I just like, no, I think I gotta fight this. Yeah. And I stated my case. The city stated its case and made a very solid case actually. And then I just, basically said, this just doesn't feel just. It doesn't feel right. Like I can't even have people here to make the dishes dirty. And right now, because the city said that I couldn't. Now I'm gonna be given a ticket on the other side of that for, it was like a small victory, obviously, but goddamn, I must have felt like I won the Super Bowl like Tom Brady yesterday. It was I needed that just from a psychological standpoint.
Well, when I saw you post that, I was very excited for you because. Yeah, how often does somebody get to take on the city in a even a small way and win?
It's scary. I was scared. I had butterflies in my stomach and all that. Like I almost didn't want to go. I really didn't want to go. I'm almost like, it's just like why bother? Why bother? Yeah. And I've been saying that a lot. And these days I think. Everything freaking matters what, if I never would have known I would have won,
Right.
And,
Yeah, no, I get that. And the way the year's been, I mean, I could see the apprehension, the skepticism of going and trying to fight your case against a behemoth like the city of Chicago. I understand, but it's also really gratifying that you were able to do that and come out, as a winner on that. Now, with regards to no dishwasher, you're opening up again. Has that all been taken care of?
We are gonna. I spoke to our guy. It was actually another nice moment with saying that I could bring him back. So we are going to bring back our dishwasher and we're going to go, my front of the house manager is going double masked and, we keep our dining. We're cutting our menu down a little bit and, to keep it moving a little bit faster.
Right.
And we literally measure the tables to be 6 feet apart from each other. I'm masked, obviously, and I think one of the advantages we have is, our guests are seated and they're not talking to us. We're so much. And, this is kind of like a little show. I got the podium where I stand up there and we got through it last time. I feel like we can do it again this time.
Yeah.
I had a good talk with my dining room manager, and this was a team. It was us making a decision together along with my wife about. I've got my 2 daughters are now with me full time upstairs. So there's really a lot at play and a lot of different avenues to really contemplate and give serious consideration.
Have you already started figuring out your menu?
Yep, I have.
Okay.
Definitely. Pulling out some of the classic dishes from the past, some new ones as well. I'm pretty excited about our offerings for sure.
Yeah.
Actually taking more energy into this reopening than I did the last one, oddly, even though I'm also running the barbecue at the same time.
Why do you think that is?
I don't have any idea. I think I don't know why that is, actually. I still feel like there's a very good chance we're just going to get shut down again here pretty soon. And and there's just there's tons of things, pitfalls, and there's tons of traps all over the place. And, but march forward,
Yeah. Have you decided on a course amount?
I think we're at 9.
Okay.
Which is quite a bit down from, we used to be at around 13.
Yeah. Okay.
Larger portions.
Well, that should also be a little bit more, that should also be easier on you, quite frankly.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't any more than that, and I'm going to I need to keep myself healthy. The one thing that is definitely going to not get me to retirement is if I'm not going to be healthy and in a good state of mind, going about my business. And, there's enough going on right now to really make sure that I keep my finger on the pulse of that.
Yeah. What was I going to say? What kind of, well, 2 questions regarding L-Ideas. One, how are you doing reservations going forward?
Through mail, email, or on our website, like we always have.
Yeah. Have you entertained the option of talk? I know that's another thing that's come up. And what are your opinions of talk? Because now it's just, to me, it's another service. Ostensibly, they're more restaurant owner, cook, chef friendly.
Right.
But there's still another new online setup. It's, I mean, where are you at with them? What do you think?
Next opened up at the same year. I think we opened up maybe a couple months after Next opened up. And the fact that they did their ticketing system and got everybody to pay up front before they came to dine made it okay for a restaurant really like us to do that. And if we hadn't done it, we wouldn't have even survived back in the early food truck days. It was about I was literally getting paid, using the money we were going to make from next week to pay the bills for this week, and so we very much are, able to, doing what we're doing because of that. Now, when talk became a thing where other restaurants could sign up for it, we kind of hesitated to do that. I think, and again, it's the same thing with, I think how I feel about the delivery apps. It's also how I feel about the comic book that I wrote. Hasn't gone for sale on Amazon. I don't like giving my money, the money that is coming to us, other people, in general. And especially, and this is kind of where my ego, I think, also came into it a little bit as well, is I love them and all, right? They're such inspirations, but I don't really want to be on their platform, I think in a way it kind of, my ego wouldn't let me. I was like, no, I'm just going to be the outlier. And quite honestly, my wife, Akiko, built the platform that we have, where it's like right off of QuickBooks. We don't have to pay any percentage of our sales to any other company, you know, whether that's OpenTable or anyone.
Right.
So we just keep more of the money that we make, and that's a really big deal in this business.
Well, I think nowadays, restaurants, especially like yours, I think, and to go back to our old times, there has to be a certain DIY kind of attitude. There's a lot available. If you're going to do a business like this, you have to know how to handle having a website, you know, doing social media and handling reservations in this case. And there's a way to do it. You know, the kind of question mark has always been, how do you get people in, you know, and sure, reviews and the Michelin star definitely, you know, keep holding on to that over the years has been a good thing, you know, for all ideas. I think those are two, you know, big things that have really helped. I mean, Michelin rated, that means when people come to Chicago, they're looking at, if they're really intensely into food, they're looking at certain menu, you know, meals, and maybe Alinea is out of their price point, but all ideas is looser and cheaper, but still got that flair that they're looking for, and it's got a star. You know, I think people need to, as business owners, especially at a certain level, need to be more self-reliant. I think it's admirable of you to have, you know, figured out how to do the same thing without having to pay somebody else to do it.
Yeah, and then again, most of that credit goes to my wife. If it wasn't for her putting it together, I definitely would have joined on. I don't, you know, again, there aren't that many choices, and it's a great, they do a great job. You know, I think they're much better than other reservation systems. I would much sooner put like Boxcar BBQ on that for their, you know, for what they've done for, you know, as far as like transitioning and doing the, you know, staying ahead of the times and ahead of the curve. I mean, they've always been able to do that as a group, and I think that's something that we can all tip our toes to for sure. But like that, the sense, I'd rather, you know, be appreciated for the guy who's not in that than to just, there's so many other restaurants, and, you know, I mean, they've certainly taken off, you know, and I just would prefer to maintain the naive and maybe even foolish rebel Don Quixote.
Yeah. I mean, well, I think that suits you. Yeah, I think that suits you. Quite honestly, it suits your personality to be the outlier, to be the rebel. But you know, and spinning on that idea, actually, you used to be known for. And I hope I haven't gotten this wrong, but I seem to remember you had a bit of an issue with your temper, perhaps.
No question about that.
When you were younger, and that sort of stuck with you for a while. Do you feel like you've kind of gotten a lot of that under control as you've gotten older?
Maybe a little bit just this last year, oddly enough. But my anger, like I'm an emotional guy, whether that's happiness, sadness, and, you know, like most of the anger just was over the last about 5 years into L. Like I had an incident where I grabbed a cook, you know, by his face like this, and my entire team threatened to walk out on me, and they actually didn't threaten to walk out. They actually said, either you stay out of the restaurant or we're all going to walk. So I actually stayed away from my restaurant for 2 nights, and they ran the show without me. And then after that, they, you know, we started a whole thing. I you know, like they accused me of something that I didn't actually do. But the point is like, I was very angry at them about that for sure. But I really looked at, like, okay, what happened? Why did I actually do that? Like, why did I grab this guy's face? And in that process, I decided to go to an anger management therapist, and, you know, and I committed to it. And in that process, I learned that about the help, you know, what meditation can do for people with uncontrollable angers and uncontrollable rages. And really wound up, am fully dedicated to that now, probably more than any other single thing in my life, is just trying to negotiate my emotions in a better way, for better and worse.
Yeah. Yeah. How, and you know, obviously you don't have to answer anything, but I am a person that is always fascinated by people's behavior. And again, if you don't want to answer any of these questions, it's fine. I just like to ask questions. Have you zeroed in on the root cause of this anger since you've been in anger management?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think there are multiple causes for it, but absolutely I have. You know, abandonment issues for sure, inferiority complex for sure. You know, just a delusional, you know, if I didn't feel something was right, I felt like I could just like destroy it. A lack of accepting of certain things that were beyond my control. Instead, I would, you know, control issues, major control issues. And then also in my DNA, my family, like my mom's side of the family, especially, and my dad's side of the family, both of them have, you know, like, I think all of us have family members who had anger issues. You know, it kind of comes with being human, you know, and trying to learn about that has really been the greatest ride of my life, you know, the most difficult ride of my life for sure.
Yeah. You know, I'm rereading Bourdain's Kitchen Confidential, and in it there's a lot of things I hadn't read in a long time, so rereading it's been fun. But in it, he talks about basically the idea that the industry for him coming up, and you're younger than he was, so we were still coming at it in a different time, but still in the same time frame that he talks about in the book, that the kitchens offered a certain order, you know, sort of like military, but also, you know, not, you know, it's right. A certain order to things. And is that something that initially appealed to you, getting into cooking, where the something
absolutely
that had order where your life maybe didn't?
Structured. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I got kicked out of my home twice in high school. I got expelled from high school once. I was in 2 different drug rehab facilities. You know, my high school guidance counselor told my mom not to expect me to amount to much. You know, and it starts, you know, so when you find a kitchen and you start to understand, you know, that there can be structure there, you know, when you work for the best people, like I was lucky enough to do coming up as a young cook, you know, the reason that they're best is because they keep a really tight structure. And the reason that they keep a really tight structure is because they're very disciplined. Now, what usually comes with people who are very disciplined is a pretty ferocious anger and a pretty ferocious, you know, ability to get one's message across. And so as a young cook, you just kind of adopt that as just like, oh, this is who I need to be. Like, I remember being a young cook and being like, wow, I can't wait till I'm a sous chef so I can really take it out on a young cook the way my sous chef has done so many times with me. And like the first time you blow up is just like, you know, just feel like you earned your right to be there. And, you know, and obviously that was wrong. You know, I think that all of us who came up in that generation have like this negotiation that we need to do. Like, no, we don't have a get out of jail free card when it comes to our anger. You know, like we used to, you know, everyone just used to, and they, you know, they still kind of think it's like, okay, the person at the head of the kitchen's got to be a tough guy to work for. Otherwise, it's not really a good chef, you know? And
right.
Certainly within the industry, it's that it has to be that kind of mentality, or it is, you know, whether it has to be or not, but I don't think it does. But, you know, again, like there's just, it's an interesting time for our career and profession. You know, who's training the next set of cooks here exactly right now? The answer is nobody, you know, and, you know, and when we do get back to it, the rules are going to be different, as they should be. But, do I feel like we're going to dial up 20 years from now and the food's going to be more exciting than it was last year or 2019? No fucking way. No fucking way. But, it'll be then. And here's the thing is like, we don't, as a society, don't really spend that much time reflecting. You just keep moving forward, and whatever is ahead, it'll be ahead. So, it's a little bit sad, but we'll fucking get over it.
Yeah, well,
what choice do we have, right? I mean,
right. No, and it's interesting the way you talk about that makes me think, I came from an abusive household, not my mother, my father, and I came from, I don't know how much we discussed this on the phone. My father was an addict and an alcoholic, and it's something that I avoided, but, I ended up taking my addiction to food, basically, and putting in food. And I know there are people that roll their eyes, and I even rolled my eyes at the idea of that, but I've channeled my pain into eating, basically, and tried to do my best, and I made a point when I was raising my son to do things differently with him than my father and in my marriage. But, ultimately, and I think we discussed this too, like, ultimately, I made different mistakes stemming from the same place. So the idea of when you're talking about the kitchen system, it's the idea that abuse begets abuse begets abuse.
Right.
And people think that's the way it is, but you also have the idea, like in the military, that the chef is the colonel or sergeant general or whatever, or the sergeant of a platoon, what have you, and that in order to make sure that the things run right, he has to be hardline with keeping order, keeping everybody in line, making sure that everything doesn't bomb out because the guy doing the saute station, the sauces or whatever, the dishwasher fucks up, because that's going to throw everything off. And what people didn't realize is that, yes, yelling and screaming work in the moment, but they also beget more and more of that as they go on. And the problem nowadays is that we're in a society that's trying to stop all of that, stuff of every kind. And you sit there and you say, well, that isn't that bad. If you feel bad, leave, what have you. But what you have to realize is that, it's still an abuse, and we're as a society, we need to kind of, exactly what you said, move forward and get better at things. But the worry is too that if you're too nice, then is everybody going to slack off?
It's definitely got a double edge to it. It's both, know, and I think that everything's just a kind of like this duality, like you're saying, like you can parent as much as you want not to parent like your parents, but the bottom line is that just because you're in your head changing the narrative, like it's still, you're bringing all of your life in it with you, you know, and you can't just walk away from that, and the weird thing is just like it did for your dad and, and our parents, my parents, when they got upset, like in this middle age, you're just like, how can you deal with kids? You've got so many other things going on, but, and we forget what it's like to be a kid. So, and they'll listen and they'll keep loving and they'll want to be loved and they'll want your attention. And they're very, kids will forgive most, almost anything until they get old enough to realize what it is that they were forgiving all along. But, it's like, it's really, I think it's imperative for people our age and in our positions to kind of step out of the usual, our usual pattern of thinking even, and our usual pattern of being, and just try to do it a different way. And at the end of the day, if my kids know me as somebody who only, like didn't hit them when they were bad, I've done a really good thing. I stopped something that's been passed down for generations, generations. Like I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure your dad was probably hit as a kid, and you just, it's like fighting it is like people who don't know what it's like to go through that and to change as a parent, just, it's only because you can't explain it to anybody, because they can be tidal waves of emotion, and you can really hurt a child, like I feel like I was hurt, like you were hurt, just to not want to hurt your kids like that. I'll find other ways to hurt him. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Not like that, right?
Yeah, no, I know. And then you sit there and you think about, well, what did I do? My son's 30. And without getting into it because it's his life, but he has some issues, and I haven't really been able to zero in on, I always tell him, I know I wasn't a perfect parent. I know that. But I said, I always tried my absolute best whenever possible. I tried to give you everything, I could, and I tried to be there for you like my father wasn't, and everything. But when I talked to my ex-wife, I'm like, I know he hasn't gotten there yet to describe what it is he's angry about. But we're not 100% sure, but we know we probably did something, but we just don't know. And whether or not that was our relationship that affected him, maybe, you arguing with each other and blah, 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 we don't know yet because he hasn't gotten to that place where he's told us. So you don't know, but you know in your heart that you try to do more and better than your whoever the abuser was,
Yeah. Yeah. It's a full game, it for sure is. And, I think a lot of it, we all have to live with a little bit of guilt for the things that we've done wrong, and it's okay to feel a little bad about, like nobody has a guidebook to being a good parent. Nobody comes with, you must have been very young when you became a father, It's like, it's the hardest thing to do, and nobody's done it perfectly. And you know what, at the end of the day, I look at my flaws and, and the way that I was wronged. And at the end, and my circumstances have definitely, they affect who I am every day. Every day. They always will. I can't meditate that shit out of me by no way. But the choices I make on the daily, right? The decisions I make, to try to lead my life in a positive way and with my kids, and just not right. To me, being positive right now is just not being miserable. Right. The game is changing again. You change the, how am I dealing with my misery? If I can, actually feel and deal with my own pain, because most of my anger came just from sadness that I really hadn't dealt with, period. Right. I mean, if you really want to boil it down to a sentence, and now it's, if I feel my pain and really deal with it, then I'm not going to be passing that down to them. Right. And they're not going to have to deal with my pain, which will hopefully let their little young brains, figure out better how to just be them. I wish I had that as a kid, But I wonder how my life would have gone if I had things fall into place, right?
Yeah. But you also have to recognize that as a parent, you're still going to disappoint them somehow, and
embrace it when you do. Embrace yourself when you do. Like this whole thing of feeling that we have to be perfect and not make mistakes is part of the problem. Actually, it's part of the problem. The kids will forgive, like I said, and you give them permission to not be perfect too. I think you just hold yourself accountable. Say, hey, I fucked up. I'm sorry. You deserve better than that. It's amazing how little things like apologies, the effect that has, I think. But yeah.
Sorry,
that's okay. I know
he made a noise like he had thrown up. I'm like, I don't know what the deal is, but he's usually quiet when I do my interviews, but today he's been a little bit annoying. Well, I don't want to keep you much longer, but I do want to talk about a couple things with Boxcar BBQ. You're going to still be running Boxcar out of the LIDS space, correct?
Correct.
Do you see that presenting any problem with doing service for LIDS?
No, we're just going to be doing the curbside takeout, and we're going to have people coming before our dinner service begins, for pickup. We also do delivery, with Getcho and the Uber package, which are paid for by the customer. But yeah, we're gonna do it and see how it goes, and but I just spent all this time and effort to kind of build up and create these recipes and
it
create this brand.
seems strange to dump
Like,
it. Yeah,
it is. And I mean, to be real, like I said, I wasn't expecting L to be able to be open up right now. But now that it's like dangling in front of me, I just can't help but to do it. And, you know, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. So you're planning on basically offering a time frame for pickup and delivery, basically.
Right.
So it's basically like probably 11 a.m. to say 4 or something. Or 5.
No. Right now we have pickups. This is how we're doing it right now. You don't just call up when you want barbecue. You have to pre-order it.
Okay.
And then you can choose to come between 5 and 6 or 6 and 7.
Okay.
And yeah, because I can't I have to keep the windows really narrow if I want to pull this off, you know. And I got to make sure I do it right again without just going completely off batshit crazy in the process.
Yeah. What days are you serving Boxcar barbecue?
Both Boxcar and L are available Thursday to Sunday, and we can even do that on earlier in the week too if somebody has an order or something.
Right. Well, and you're cooking ribs now. Do you have like an order for going out?
No, this is actually just getting ahead for the week. No, it's just keeping us stocked up.
Gotcha.
So I can do both.
The smoker, did you get that specifically for us, or did you have that before?
It actually came with a building. It had been here since day one, and we use it quite a bit for L, but it's getting a daily workout nowadays.
Yeah. And when do reservations go on sale for L?
They're officially up now.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to try to. I'm going to hopefully get this one up this week to kind of coincide with the reopening of L Ideas.
Awesome.
So that, you know, it's out there and people are aware of it. And what is your, I guess, minimum hope right now for both, for L Ideas and for Boxcar? I mean, what do you at least hope for in the next month? let's not go too.
That's okay. In the next month.
Yeah.
To not get closed down again.
Yeah.
For L.
Yeah.
Not to get L closed down again would be my hope.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah.
And you know, we have to look at simple things, and that's a simple thing, you know.
My goal as a business right now is no longer to make it to retirement. It's to make it to next year. You know, and then we'll take it one step at a time, and that's it.
Yeah. All right. Well, I you know, as always, we haven't talked in quite a while because I was out of the food writing game for a while. As some people would know, I used to write for Eater Chicago, and I stopped doing that because I quite honestly, I got tired of writing about the restaurant business, and even more pointedly, I got tired of writing about it for Eater. You know, specifically, it just wasn't my scene. But I still have my heart into whatever all you guys are doing, especially the guys that I came up with. You know, some of the first people, when you were one of the first people I talked to, I remember. So, you know, it's always been my contention to keep people updated. And then my interest is still in finding out new things. But, you know, I think as with music or anything, as we get older, our interests narrow. And they don't move forward necessarily, you know, so we kind of, I don't know what exactly I'm getting at, but I'm thinking of specifically something like music or something where you get to a certain point where you can't keep taking in a lot of new information, you know, sometimes. And I don't know what that means exactly or why that is, but I'm always happy to talk to a guy from back in the day that's still trying to do what he does best. And once I feel it's safe again, I would, in fact, I full disclosure, you actually were were gracious enough to let me in a guest dine at L Ideas over 5 years ago, comped, which I still appreciate very much.
How do you do that?
Huh?
Can you pay now? Yeah, I changed my mind. Can you pay? Just kidding. I'm just joking. I'm just joking. Just joking.
No, but you were very gracious, and I greatly appreciate it because you know, they don't pay much when you're writing about food.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, so you know, I tried to always, the people that were nice enough to comp me things, I always tried to put a nudge in to get them mentioned somewhere. You know, wherever I could, or try to help them out as best I could, you know, with a story when I was able to. So, and you're one of the ones that was always gracious to me. So I want to make sure that I say thank you.
Thanks, Brett. Appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me today.
But I have to put it in order soon for Boxcar BBQ.
There you go.
I definitely do that. But thank you very much for your time today, Chef, and you have a great rest of your day.
You take care. Thank you.
All right, take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.